Okay, today we'll be taking you through fitting of a NIStune board to a R32 ECU with the RB20DET engine ECU. Here's our NIStune board, here's our adapter cable. First step, off with the covers. Just watch out for these little screws that hold these in. They can be a little bit tight and they're quite easy to strip. I like to use the cordless drill. Once you get the clutch settings set correctly, that's quite safe. If you don't do as many of these as I do, you may want to just use a standard Phillips screwdriver. Okay, this one looks good inside. While you've got your drill / screwdriver in your hand, we also need to remove the detonation detection board, which is this baby here, so that we can access the EEPROM chip, which is where our board is going to go. So there's our EEPROM chip. The next step will be removal of that beastie. Alright, the next step in the process before we remove the chip is to remove the conformal coating from both sides of the board around the chip. I like to use acetone. You can use special coating remover or even thinners, whatever you've got around that's a fairly strong solvent. Idea is get your acetone and work it in well to soften the coating, and then mop it up with your tissues. I've got Kim wipes here, you can use a rag or whatever you like. So just keep applying that. It will usually take 2 to 3 applications before you get rid of all the coating. You need to work it in well in between those legs. That's the important part, because otherwise that will stop your solder from sucking out from the other side. So get in there, don't mess around, and try and get out as much as you can. Okay, we'll then flip it over to the other side. Alright, once again, get it from all around the chip, and those 4 pads there, we also need those free of the coating. So once again, be generous, work it in, mop it up with your tissues, work it in some more, try and get it out from between the pins, mop it up, and you'll notice once it's all gone that you have there's a matte finish there of the bare board rather than the coating. Okay, now we've got our coating off. I like to put some flux on each of these pins. That helps with heat transfer from our desoldering iron. Makes quite a difference actually. Sorry about the shadows. And a bit of flux on those 4 pads. This is just a flux pen, so you kind of pump the flux out onto the job. Okay, desoldering iron, clean the tip. First of all, I'll remove the solder from those 4 pads. Always good to do that as a bit of a warm-up because they're the easy ones. Okay, next one. Now these have quite often got 2 of the legs bent over, which is one of the things they do to hold the chip in when they're soldering it. So what you need to do is bend them up. So that's all you need to do. I'll do this one on the other end just so you can see what I did again. You basically form a heat bridge with your solder and your desoldering iron. As soon as you see that solder melt, you just lift him up like so. Alright, once they're vertical, you can then go along reasonably easily on these. Don't spend any more time than you have to on each leg, because the heat will damage the board. idea is to just let that solder melt. See, that solder has not melted there. If you find that, this is a power pin and they'll need a bit more heat. Just add some solder in there again, form your heat bridge and just leave it on there for a second. And away you go. These signal pins are a little bit easier. They only have quite small tracks going to them. So yeah, stir each one around like that. Try, if you can, to keep the tip only just touching the pad. Ideally, if you were superhuman, you would be able to make it just hover above the pad so that it doesn't even touch it. It only touches the solder. This one's another power pin. You can see here how you've got a big wide bunch of track going to it. That will mean it will take more heat, so I've left that on there for probably 4 or 5 seconds. While as your normal signal pins, you only leave it on there for a second or two. Once you get past that sort of time frame, you're in the danger zone of damaging the board. So get in, get the job done, and get out. And whatever you do, don't grind your tip into those pads or you'll pull them off the board very quickly. I know it sounds like I'm grinding away into those pads, but that's actually just the pin in the barrel of the desolderer that's causing that noise. It's not a nice noise. Okay, we're nearly done here. Almost at the end. Once again, this one here, you can see there's a large track going up to that. That's one of our power pins. Add a bit of solder, leave it on there for a couple seconds extra, and then suck our solder out. Once you've removed all of the solder from those joints, it's always a good idea to move the pins around a little bit with your pliers and just try to make sure that they're not stuck. So on this side, well, this one's almost going to fall out. This is beautiful. Alright, turn him over. Now on this side, you need to go along and just give them a little bit of a push if they're at all stuck in the holes. Same from this side. This one, for a change, wants to almost jump off the board. So once you've got that done, then you can hook in and normally just get a screwdriver under there. It's fine. Sometimes the ones in the corners will get stuck. And that's it. We've got our chip out. Okay, our chip is now out. Now we can see just how much flux and residual coating is left underneath the chip, so we need to mop that up with our acetone. So just give that a good old working over, get things nice and clean. This one's not too bad. They do vary, once again, depending how carried away the Japanese people got when they were building them. That side looks clean. The other side, you can see how much flux was left from the removal operation there. Need to get rid of all that. And that will also get rid of any tiny little solder blobs and bits and pieces that may have been there. There we are, lovely. Alright, next job is to finally start fitting some bits and pieces. Take your socket, which was shipped with the board, and that's ready to fit in where we pulled our chip out of the ECU. Now we'll be soldering from the other side, so it's nice to have some tape on there to hold it in. I'll just use some masking tape. And we have our ribbon cable which needs to be soldered in. If you have a good look at the ribbon cable there, you'll see to your left is a number 1 indicating pin 1. Take note of that, and it varies between different ECUs, so check your NIStune documentation. I happen to know that on this one, if you look down here, there's a 61 up this end. That's just that jogs my memory to say the 1 goes up that end, but they do vary between ECUs. So just see if we can get those all in the holes. Line them up. Okay. Once again, we'll tape that in place. Try to arrange that just so that the wires are as near vertical as you can get as they go through the holes. Tuck that away and flip him over, ready for the soldering. Okay, soldering. I usually like to do those 4 wires first. They're the easiest. Don't put just too much solder on there, and don't hang around on the joints too long or that wire will start to melt on the other side. So you can see about half a second on each. Then we go to our socket. Just do each corner just to hold it in place. That corner there, once again, is a power or ground plane. As you can see there, takes a lot more heat, so give that a couple of seconds. And then the others you can tend to do a lot quicker. So it'd be about a second each, I suppose. I use a slightly oversized tip on my soldering iron. I don't turn the heat up any higher than what you should, but that tip does have a lot of residual heat, so you'll find that it's capable of getting the heat into the job very quickly, so you can get in and get out. As per usual, heat is your enemy. This one in the corner is a power or ground, so once again, stay on that one a little bit longer, let the heat get in there. And these are all signals, so you can scoot along here fairly quickly. You'll see I'm not using a lot of solder. You're better off with slightly less than slightly more. Enables you to actually see if the job's been done properly in the end. If you have a huge blob of solder on there, you can't see what's underneath. So you're aiming for just a slightly convex fillet once the job is complete. There we go, that's about how long it should take. Okay, soldering finished. Now there's more cleaning. Out with your brush and the acetone, and we need to get rid of that flux that we've put on there. So this is relatively easy to do because that flux is nice and fresh. Mop it up. Beautiful. Once you've got to that point, have a really good look at those joints. Get this up here. I like to use one of these little eyeglasses, and you just go along and you can check each joint in detail. They look just fine. Probably the main thing is go along and check them and make sure you haven't missed one. That's the most common problem. That will ruin your day if you have one that's not soldered at all, because the ECU won't run basically. So we turn him over. Now we can get rid of our masking tape, and we're ready to install our NIStune board. Aha, here he is. Get rid of the foam off the back. Just have a look at your pins on the back there, make sure they're all straight before you start. They are a little bit delicate, so be careful. Okay, this will be coming in from over this side, so just bend him around, get that ready. Sometimes this capping needs to be bent over a little bit just to get him out of the way, and then place him there. Now look in from this end here, and you can make sure that those pins are lined up correctly before you push the board down. Now this takes a little bit of force, so make sure everything is right, and then just make sure you spread your fingers across there and push him down. Sounds a bit brutal, but it's not that bad. And then we fit our connector. Okay. Okay, we're nearly done. Time to refit our covers. This particular cover looks like it might have been in a bushfire. Once again, be a little bit careful with these screws. It's quite easy to burr the heads on them. They went to different sort of screws on the later ECUs, which was an entirely good idea. Alright, I do believe we're done.